Have you ever noticed something strange about where your dog chooses to sit? Even when there are many comfortable places in the room, it often walks past them all and settles beside one particular person, not the person holding food, not the person who called it, just one person. And in many homes, it's the same person, every time. Sometimes the moment is so ordinary that people barely notice it. You might be sitting in the living room in the evening, the television is on, someone is scrolling through their phone, another person is quietly reading. At first glance, this might seem like a simple preference. Some people assume the dog sits there only because that person gives the most food or attention. But in many cases, this behavior reveals something much deeper: trust, familiarity, and emotional comfort. Around the room, there are many places where a dog could choose to rest. There might be a soft dog bed in the corner, a comfortable space on the couch, or a cool spot on the floor near the wall. From the outside, all of these places seem equally comfortable. Yet very often, a dog will ignore most of them. Instead, it walks across the room and settles beside one particular person. Sometimes it lies near their feet. Other times, it simply rests nearby on the floor, close enough to feel their presence. If you live with a dog, this scene may feel very familiar. It happens during quiet moments in everyday life. When someone is watching television after dinner, when a person is sitting at a desk working on a laptop, or when family members are gathered together in the same room. The dog moves around for a moment, looking for a place to settle. It might walk past several comfortable spots. Then, almost without hesitation, it chooses to sit beside one particular person. What makes this behavior interesting is how calm it usually is. The dog isn't asking for attention. There's no toy, no food, and no one has called its name. And yet, if you pay attention over time, you may notice something interesting. It's usually the same person the dog chooses to sit beside. From the outside, it might look like a small decision, a dog choosing one place to rest instead of another. But if you observe this pattern over time, something becomes noticeable. In many homes, the dog does not sit next to different people each day. Instead, it often returns to the same person again and again. The dog might greet everyone when they first enter the room. It might wander around the house during the day, but when things become quiet and it is time to rest, the dog frequently chooses the same spot beside the same person. This raises an interesting question. Why do dogs often choose to sit next to one particular person, even when there are many other comfortable places available? To understand this behavior, it helps to remember something simple about dogs. Dogs rarely choose resting places randomly. When a dog settles down somewhere, that location usually offers something important to them. It might be physical comfort, it might be warmth, or it might simply be a place that feels calm and predictable. For dogs, resting is not only about finding a soft surface, it is also about finding an environment where they can truly relax. And the presence of certain people can influence that feeling more than you might realize. One of the most common reasons a dog sits beside a particular person is familiarity. Dogs experience the world very differently from humans. They rely heavily on patterns of scent, sound, and movement. Over time, they become extremely familiar with the people they interact with the most. They learn how those people walk through the house. They recognize the sound of their footsteps. They become accustomed to the rhythm of their voice and the way they move around the room. Because of this, being near that person can make the environment feel easier to understand. Nothing feels surprising. Nothing feels unpredictable. And when a dog senses that kind of stability, it becomes much easier for them to relax. You may notice this in small ways. A dog lying beside someone might slowly stretch out its legs. Its breathing becomes slow and steady. Its eyes may close for a moment before opening again. These are subtle signs that the dog feels comfortable enough to rest without staying fully alert. Another important reason dogs choose to sit beside certain people has to do with emotional energy. Dogs are remarkably sensitive to the emotional atmosphere around them. They pay close attention to tone of voice, body movement, and how people react to the environment around them. In many homes, Different people naturally bring different kinds of energy into the room. Some people move quickly and speak loudly. They gesture often while talking. Their movements create a lot of activity in the space around them. Other people move more slowly. Their voices are quieter. Their body language is calm and steady. Dogs often gravitate toward the people who create a calmer presence. When a dog sits beside someone like this, the environment feels peaceful. There are fewer sudden movements, fewer loud sounds, and fewer unpredictable changes. This allows the dog's body to settle into a more relaxed state. Their muscles loosen, their breathing slows, and they can comfortably remain in that spot for a long time. But sometimes, the explanation is even simpler. Dogs are social animals. For thousands of years, they have lived in close groups, whether with other animals or with humans. Because of this, many dogs naturally enjoy being near someone they trust, not because they need something, not because they are waiting for food or play, but simply because the presence of that person feels comforting. This kind of closeness is often very quiet. The dog may not ask for attention. It may not even look at the person very often. It simply rests nearby, sharing the same space. And for many dogs, that quiet companionship is enough. Over time, another factor quietly shapes this behavior: daily routines. Dogs are extremely good at learning patterns. In most homes, the day follows a rhythm that slowly becomes familiar to them. Certain activities happen in the same places, and often with the same people. Perhaps one person always sits on the couch in the evening, while another spends time working at a desk during the afternoon. At first, these moments may not seem important, but for a dog, repeated experiences create strong associations. If a dog often rests quietly beside someone during calm moments, that space gradually becomes connected with relaxation. The dog learns that when that person sits down, the environment tends to become peaceful. The room grows quieter, movements slow down, and nothing unexpected usually happens. Over time, the dog begins to associate that person with the feeling of settling down. So when the dog looks for a place to rest, returning to that familiar spot beside them becomes a natural choice. Not because the dog is making a conscious decision, but because that place has quietly become part of its daily rhythm. When you begin observing dogs closely, you may notice that this behavior often appears alongside other small patterns. A dog that sits beside someone during quiet moments may also show other subtle habits. During the day, the dog might follow that same person from one room to another, not closely enough to demand attention, but near enough to keep them within sight. At other times, when something unusual happens in the house, the dog may briefly look toward that person, almost as if checking their reaction. And during the night, the dog might prefer to sleep closer to that same person than to anyone else in the household. Each of these behaviors may seem small on its own, but when they appear together, they begin to reveal a pattern. Dogs often stay near the people who make them feel the most calm and familiar with their surroundings. These are the people whose voices they recognize instantly, the people whose movements they understand, and the people whose presence feels steady and predictable. For a dog, that sense of predictability is deeply comforting. When they rest beside someone who feels familiar, they do not need to stay alert to every sound or movement. Instead, they can allow their body to relax. They can close their eyes for a moment or drift into a light sleep while still sharing the same space. This is why the act of sitting beside someone is often less about seeking attention and more about feeling comfortable. A dog that truly feels at ease does not need constant interaction. It does not need toys or commands. Sometimes, it simply wants to be nearby, just close enough to share the quiet moment. Interestingly, in many homes, the person a dog chooses to sit beside most often is also the person the dog trusts the most. Trust for dogs is not always expressed through excitement. It is not always shown through jumping, barking, or playful energy. Often, trust appears in much quieter ways. A relaxed body, a slow breath, a dog that feels safe enough to close its eyes while resting beside someone. When dogs trust someone deeply, they do not feel the need to watch them carefully. They simply feel comfortable sharing the same space. And this quiet comfort often becomes part of the everyday rhythm of the home. The dog wanders around during the day, exploring rooms, greeting different people. But when the house becomes calm again, the dog often returns to the same place. Sometimes that place is a bed, sometimes it is a favorite corner of the room, and sometimes it is simply the space beside a certain person. A dog may have many places to rest, but when it repeatedly chooses to sit next to you, even when nothing special is happening, it often means something very simple. Your presence has become a place where it feels calm. And sometimes, the strongest connection between a dog and a person appears in moments exactly like this. Moments when nothing exciting is happening, the room is quiet, and a dog simply chooses to sit beside you.